All right, good morning, everybody. This is Monday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician, and every Monday morning, well, I try to have something that help you get through the week, so to speak, about with your car, about making decisions about buying a car, or maybe what kind of car you should be buying in the future. I mean, cars are changing. I mean, you'd be surprised the type of cars we have now and what we had years ago are not the same. And a lot of car manufacturers are kind of getting out of the business. Ford, they're going to stop making passenger cars and start make trucks and SUVs. I think they're only going to have one car, maybe the Mustang or maybe another car. I can't remember which one it is, but I think I got Frank Sundrum on here, and we've been talking about Chrysler products possibly maybe going the same way. Good morning, Frank. How are we doing today, sir?
Well, good morning. We are fine. The future of Chrysler is underneath the Fiat family.
Yeah.
It's kind of murky today.
It is. I noticed that. It seemed like, when Chrysler and Fiat got together years ago, everybody said, well, Fiat's not exactly the greatest car in the world, but, they're a good company. They've been around a long time. Let's see what happens. But things are kind of been going downhill southways, I think, in the last, 10 years. Would you say so?
Well, I think that the cars are certainly a question mark. As you say, Ford is getting out, and everybody's toning down on cars except for maybe a hybrid here or there. And last week there were stories all over the place that Chrysler and Dodge were going to just go away.
Yeah, that's
that's not going to happen right away, but what they are going to do is to just make so few of them, it's hardly going to count.
Now, did you tell me that Chrysler only sold 200,000 units last year? Is that what you told me, or is that just something else?
Something like that. It's really staggering how few cars they are selling. Okay?
Really?
And yeah, it is really surprising how few, and that so you're seeing a definite bright trend line about what is happening. So over the weekend, Marchioli, who is the head of Fiat Chrysler, talked about how Chrysler was just going to be one of the brands, but not in a way the shining star it used to be.
Okay.
Right? So they're just going to make very few cars, and essentially Fiat is going to go back. I guess they're going to just tone it down to a point where it's not going to really count, because the big selling product in the Chrysler in the Chrysler Fiat brand is Jeep.
Yep.
That is the whole thing.
500,000 units last year of Jeeps. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's quite a bit. I mean, that's more than what they sold in cars, more than double. So it's like Ford. Ford knows the same thing. People are not buying cars; they're buying trucks. And even though gas prices are getting higher, and trucks get less fuel mileage, trucks such as Jeeps seem to be more popular than cars. And there's a good reason for it. I think that's the reason what's happening. Man, maybe they're going to go away like Ford. Maybe they're thinking like Ford. I would not be surprised if I see General Motors following suit in the next few years. But we know history repeats itself. And how long is it going to be before gas is going to start rising again? And like it did in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and keeps repeating itself, and people start freaking out and going, I can't afford to drive this 12 miles to a gallon excursion. Let me get a smaller car again. But there's not going to be any cars to buy except if they come from overseas, like Honda, Toyota. Are we repeating that same process again that we did in the 70s, possibly?
Very much so, very much so. One of the things that threw the car industry into an absolute tailspin back in the 70s, again in the 80s, again in the 90s, was just the fact that they just left themselves vulnerable to gas shocks. And there's another one coming. Gas prices have risen 33% over the last year.
Just traveling from state to state, there's a difference in prices due to the taxes they have. I think I was in Louisiana yesterday, and regular gas with 10% ethanol was $2.59, and if you bought regular gas without ethanol, it was $2.89, 30 cents more a gallon. But you know what? I picked up approximately about a 10% gas increase in mileage because I'm using non-ethanol fuel. Just that same trip versus ethanol fuel. So it's just a matter of what people are wanting to get. They don't realize that gas prices are going to be a real determination factor in the next few months, I should say, on people buying cars and trucks. And I just think maybe they've got the cart before the horse and not thinking this through, because I got a feeling it's just cyclical. We're going to go right back to wanting to drive cars again, and then trucks will be pushed to the side, and then they'll start this whole process over. But if they don't have cars in the making, and they're going to have a hard time selling them. That's what and that's what I see happening. It's like a repeat of the 70s. We had the big old gas guzzlers, and then they didn't have small cars, and Toyota and Honda and Nissan just kicked butt when it came to cars being sold.
Indeed. And, at that point, will Fiat be in a position to all of a sudden ship over, 10 million cars in a year to sell in the United States to make up for it? No, because Fiat has an absolutely horrible reputation, earned or unearned.
Yeah, fix it again tomorrow, FIAT, or fix it again, Tony.
Yeah, fix it again, Tony. And, the cars are different today. Cars are made differently, they're built differently, and maybe, I have no experience with one. I drove one Fiat, and I rented one, and I drove it around 2 blocks, and I drove it back saying, give me another car, because it was a thoroughly nasty car.
Ooh. Well, I can't say pro or con against them. I haven't had very many Fiats come into my shop. See lots of smaller cars, such as the little mini cars. We see lots of minis, and we see lots of small import cars, but we don't see very many of the Fiat brand here. They don't seem to go over very well in this part of Florida. Maybe they will in bigger cities, but here in Northwest Florida, I'd see very few Fiat vehicles coming into my shop for even oil changes. It's I guess don't think they're selling that many of them, and that may be what's happening. But we've talked about the same thing about Ford's going that way, Chrysler's going this way. It's just a matter of time before we don't. I got a feeling, we talked about it before, in the next few years we're going to see less and less dealerships. We're going to see, because as we were talking last week, that a lot of bigger cities estimate by the year 2030 they're going to have a lot less cars in their people driving, because the younger generation would rather rent a electric scooter. I was watching about San Francisco. They rent electric scooters on their smartphone instead of cars. They don't have cars. And so that may be what's happening. We're getting rid of cars and getting rid of trucks, and maybe public transportation is what they're shooting for, but I just don't see that taking off in America in the next 15, 20, 30 years, but they say that's the way we're going. So who knows what's going to happen. Your ideas on this, Frank?
Well, I don't see it happening. As much as we look to New York and San Francisco and the bigger and Seattle as cultural influencers, they're really not. They're more like outliers. Conditions in San Francisco and New York and the big cities are very different than a smaller town like Panama City or my favorite town in the world, Weaver Hitchcock.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite too.
Okay, the country has not made a meaningful investment in infrastructure in 50 years.
Well,
I mean,
good point.
The last major investment it made in infrastructure was the interstate highways that connected us.
That's correct.
They really have not gone to trains. They've really not gone to super trains. They've not really invested much in anything. This country is really running on the fumes of the post-World War II investment that we made back then. And we're running on the fumes of that. And one of the reasons what made this country really great were really two things. One was the GI Bill, which gave us a 50-year investment.
Sure did.
And now the people who we invested in are sadly leaving. The other thing it did was the interstate highway system.
Well,
nothing has replaced that.
Yeah, well, you got a point there. The interstate highway system is probably the biggest infrastructure system that started under Eisenhower, if I'm not mistaken, and the interstate highway has really made the difference. I remember growing up traveling without the interstate highway, having to go visit family, and then once the interstate highway was made available, it was a night and day difference. We were able to travel at 70 miles an hour back then, before they lowered the speed limit down, and it was wonderful. We couldn't believe how fast we could travel from Arkansas to Oklahoma or vice versa, and we take that for granted now. And now a lot of other countries don't have that. I mean, like Japan, they don't have I don't know if they have interstate highways, but they do have trains. And they do have rail systems that are quite fast, with 200-mile-an-hour bullet trains, maybe even faster. I don't see that happening in America for a very long time.
I want to talk about trains. One of the reasons that trains aren't big in the United States is because our tracks, we have coming and going on the same track.
We do?
It's not like that in Europe.
Oh, I don't know. They're all one direction, tracks are?
No, there's coming and going tracks. There's two separate tracks.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay. So I had no idea. Maybe that makes a difference. I guess that's what you're talking about. They have to have one train get off before the other one come back down.
Well, it's definitely a safety issue. You have to remember, you have trains that could be making a head-on collision on the same track.
Well, that's why you have
that in Europe.
That's why you have the light system of red, yellow, green. That's right. If it's green, there's no train ahead. If there's red, you got a train. You need to be backing up. I guess that's how that works. Frank, what do you think? We got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. What do you think about trains here in America?
Well, I grew up in a country which is connected by trains, and it worked really, really well. The roads were just awful. If a car or a truck came the other way, you had better get off the road to give it room.
All right.
But this country really has a lack of vision, both politically and culturally, about what to do next. You cannot have half the country saying, I don't care what you want to spend it on, no more taxes, whether it's education, whether it's transportation, whether it is to clean up the environment. And it's been a real problem that the money that gets spent tends to get spent in a sideways ways. It's redirected towards corporate interests, picking winners and losers, rather than investing in education, in transportation and other things, solar energy. These are the things. And until we sort of figure out what our collective vision for this country is, we are just going to be circling. Unfortunately, we may be circling towards the drain.
Well, that slowly circling the drain is not a good way to. It's not sustainable. It really isn't sustainable.
No.
And I do think that in a few years we are going to have to make some decisions about what do we want for public transportation, or do we really want public transportation? Because some communities have just said we're just not capable of doing that. Financially, and I can't say that I disagree with them, because, well, most public transportations are money losers. Even our Bay County transit system has to be. There's no way it's profitable. They charge $1 for a bus for a trolley ride, and I think it costs like $1.50 for that same ride. So they lose money. All they're doing, until we can make it where it will maintain itself. I just don't see it happening, Frank. I know it sounds terrible, but so anyway, we'll talk more about it next week. And I really appreciate you being on here, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about cars coming up next week, okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling, Frank, and we'll be talking to you again. I got Scott Hobbs calling in a few minutes. We're going to talk about plumbing. Who knows? And maybe maybe this weekend you've had a lot of guests come over from the holidays or whatever, and maybe it's time to get those drains ran a little slow. You might want to give them a call, or at least hear what he has to say. We'll be right back.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
So, the I'll Get There Quick plumbing guy got there quick. To be fair, he did fix the leak in the kitchen drain. Too bad this is the bathroom. Mr. Rooter Plumbing ensures we fix what you see, and even what you don't.
All right, welcome back to our second part of our show. We got Scott Hobbs calling away from Mr. Rooter Plumbing. Good morning, Scott. How are we doing today, sir?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys?
Doing great. Did you survive the weekend? I know it was a long one.
I survived. A little bit of lightning, a little bit of thunder, but we're good.
Well, it is. Now, we know this is the time of year where people don't think much about their plumbing because, everything's working like it's supposed to. But as the rainy season progresses, that you start getting more and more phone calls, I'm sure, because people's plumbing doesn't want to plumb because their septic tank may be full or drain fields may be restricted where they can't do their job anymore because the water table's risen. Is there anything can be done about that short of, pumping out I know is a short-term solution. It's not the end of it, but if people are having problems and they have to keep pumping them out, what is the alternative? To get on city sewer or to put a new drain field in or both or what?
Well, if city sewer is available, for a gravity system, I would say that's probably the best option.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to pay their impact fees. They're going to have to get a permit to abandon the old septic tank, and it has to be collapsed and filled in
mm-hmm.
properly. But that's probably the best solution. If that's not available, then you're pretty much looking at replacing that drain field.
Ooh. That's something. Now, drain field, what does a drain field consist of? Is it just piping going into the sand, or is it, I don't know what's...
Well, sure, there's different methods. There's some that has, the corrugated pipe with, rock around it, or the foam peanuts around it. It's in a kind of like a bag, or they have the chambers. It's a different system. It's almost like a half of a pipe that's put in series, and imagine fingers going out, and so the fluid, the water from the septic system goes out and soaks up into the soil, and of course, it's designed to where it's above the high water, seasonal high water level, above the water table, and so it has dry soil to soak into. And the challenge gets into is when people don't have the proper maintenance done on a regular basis, the drain field starts to fail, and or they're, planting trees and shrubs in and around the drain field, and those type things will, cause a short life of a septic system.
So one thing is avoid planting anything near your drain fields, right? That's one thing.
Absolutely. It should be just clear grass. Should be just like a little field out there.
Okay, there should be nothing, no azaleas, nothing to decorate it up, not even any flowers. Would you recommend, would that be something you would say flowers have roots that grow maybe, and you shouldn't have anything other than grass there? That's it, just grass?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion,
okay.
just grass, because you're going to get something in there that's got an aggressive root system that's going to, obviously love to be in that nutrient-rich, soil.
It's okay.
And it's going to really grow fast.
All right, so that's a good thing. So avoid that right there. Now, I know that everyone says, that's going to be an expensive situation I got to do, but to avoid that, there's a way to keep from having to have this system replaced, because I bet you some people, if they don't do maintenance, might end up having to replace their drain fields, every 10 years? If they don't do maintenance on them? I don't.
Probably so. Even the health department recommends every 3 to 5 years having the septic system pumped out, so you're getting the sludge off the bottom, the fast oils and grease off the top, and you get the fresh start. And at that time, there's a filter that filters the particles from going into your drain field, which would cause premature failure, and that filter should be cleaned or replaced as well. And that's really going to prolong the life of your system.
Yeah, because that's doing proper maintenance. That's like changing oil on your car. I have people all the time that, well, I shouldn't say have all the time. I see people that want to buy a new car to them. The car has 80,000 miles on it. I've checked it out. It's had 3 oil changes in 80,000 miles. And I tell the customer, I said, look, it looks good, it smells good, but your oil pressure is low. It's got sludge in the engine. It's just a matter of time before this engine's going to fail, and it's going to fail and leave you on the side of the road. And I guess that's because they haven't done proper maintenance by changing the oil. And it's the same thing with the drain field. You're telling me is if you don't pump it out every 3 to 5 years, if you don't do biochoice or some sort of something
Bring
to
with
promote.
bacteria.
Yeah, something to promote the bacteria in there. You're going to end up replacing that drain field about every 10 years. That's about
Right.
That's about how long a car will last. If you don't, I shouldn't say that. If you don't, 7 to 8 years. If you don't do any maintenance on the car, by the time you get the car paid off, it's wore out. I mean, it is. If you got a 7-year loan on it, if you don't do maintenance like it's supposed to, by the end of the 7 years, you got a hunk of junk that's ready to go to the salvage yard. And you're saying the same thing about your septic tank and drain field. If you don't do proper maintenance on it, by the time you get 10 years, 7 to 10 years down the road, you get to spend another, what it costs for another car.
Sure, it could be $5,000 to $25,000 depending on your specific lot.
You can buy a nice
situation.
truck. You can buy a nice truck for $25,000. You really.
You sure
It may not be brand
Really
new, but you can get a really nice truck. I got my mind. Some of those EcoBoost Fords out there. I really think they're nice, but God, are those suckers expensive?
They are. With proper maintenance, though, it'll last you a long time.
The V6 engine on those suckers with the twin turbos on them got great torque, great pull. But I got people that come in here all the time and go, well, I ain't going to put synthetic oil in it. They didn't tell me I had to. I kind of look at them and go, who told you that you said you didn't have to? Well, the people I bought it from said I could put a blend in it. Well, would you rather put in just something to get you by, or would you rather put in something that's going to make you last a long time? And they said, well, of course I want something to last a long time. Well, that's doing proper maintenance, put the best oil in it. And you're telling me if you want to have a septic tank or drain system work like it's supposed to, there's no ifs and buts or maybes. You've got to do proper maintenance, whether it's monthly putting in BioChoice or some sort of probiotic in it, or having someone come out What do you recommend coming out and looking at your drain fields? I mean, not your drain field, your drain line going to the septic tank. Is that once a year, once every 5 years? I don't know. What is recommended on maintenance on the home drain?
I would say, the best system is, our customers, our regular customers, take advantage of our service agreement, which is called our Advantage Plan, and they have us out on an annual basis, and we take a look at their entire plumbing system. We do if they have proper access to the drain line, we'll also camera that drain line and, tell them what kind of condition that drain line's in. So I would say at least on an annual basis.
It is. Anna Marie, we have the Advantage Plan, don't we? On the houses we have
Yes.
some. Now, what have you noticed about the Advantage Plan when you make a phone call and you say, hey, I got to get something taken care of? They come out?
I wish I could say that there's a difference, but this customer service at Mr. Reuter Plumbing is across the board superior, so I don't really, before I was an Advantage Plan, I still got superior service, so
Okay, so
the prices are better. I get a discount.
Okay, so if the prices are better, you get a discount. I did not know that. So if you're an Advantage Plan customer, you get a discount on your service work. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And we also offer priority service. So, that's come into play a few times over the last 15 years that we've had the Mr. Reuter franchise, where we've had either a storm come through or a freeze. And we literally will take and get an abundance of calls, and we stage those, and we hold our spots for our Advantage Plan customers who do call, and they are our first priority. We get those all taken care of, then we start calling those fresh people we've never heard from before and say, hey, we're all caught up. Can we still help you? Or, do you still need help? So those Advantage Plan customers are our priority.
Now, one thing you told me a long time ago, and I've kind of forgot about this, a lot of times people forget to put in the BioChoice or whatever, and because they're busy, and you told me you have an automatic dispenser. Now, I don't know if that's just strictly for commercial units or if it's for home units, but still, if it's for home units or commercial units, I'm sure they got it both sides, but just the idea of having something that automatically, where you got to go in once a month or once a year or whatever, and make sure the bottle level is full, kind of like my water softener in my house. It lets me know when the salt's getting low. Well, I bet you got the same thing that lets you know when that BioChoice is getting low. Do y'all have anything like that automatically?
Oh, sure. We've got it is typically for commercial use, but I guess we could set one up for residential, and it would be great for someone on a septic system to have a drip system, and it just a continuous drip, and we can set up you can set up the drip for depending on the type you use. So if it was a commercial restaurant, the drip would be greater than, say, if you chose to have it on your home. So sure, we could do it on a residential as well. And that, like you say, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. That bottle goes under the sink, and you don't think about it. Gets kind of pushed towards the back. So we see that a lot, and we try to remind folks, hey, it's something you just got to do. It's kind of like changing your air filter on your air conditioner. Just on once a month, let's just take care of it, do it.
And that's something that needs to be done. But like I said, if we could have something that's automatic, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people do. They get out of the habit of doing something, and if it's kind of like an oil change, I have to remind people by putting a sticker right on their dash. It's a static cling, so it doesn't stick permanently.
Right.
Yeah, please, I want to see you in 5,000 miles or 5 months. I need to change this oil, or at least check your car over. And we say 5 months or 5,000 miles because we don't normally see them to 6 months, 6,000 miles. So I normally gives them a month to get it back in here. But we do this to try to get them to come back in, because those that do, they have very little problems. But those people that we see that don't come in once every 6 months, that come in once every year and a half to 2 years, and I say, where have you been going for the last year and a half? Well, really, I haven't changed my oil. I'm going, this is not good. I'm glad you're running synthetic oil. It's very forgiving, but still, it's kind of like that bio choice. It's very forgiving on your septic tank system, but it still needs to be looked at on an annual basis, at least once a year. It needs to be looked at.
Sure, and the things that kill the good bacteria are some of the things you mentioned, like the salt from the water softener. The antibiotics, if you're on a dose of antibiotics, those that pass through your system pass right into your septic system and kill the good bacteria. And of course, all the antibacterial soaps and cleaners that we use these days, and chlorine type products are just, it's a detriment to your system.
That's why houses need to have a drip system on it, because everything you just said goes in every household. I mean, there's not a household out there I don't know that doesn't use bleach, that doesn't use antibacterial soap, that doesn't, someone is not going through a round of antibiotics due to some sickness, cold, flu, whatever. That's common. That's just how life is. And then they wonder at the end of 5, 6, 7 years why they got an $8,000, $20,000 bill on their septic tank because it's all messed up. And that's because, like myself, we have forgotten to put the probiotics in there because, out of sight, out of mind. That septic tank, we don't ever think about it till that we hear that glug, 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 or that overflow in the bathroom.
Right.
Then we think
we just walk in and expect it to work.
We just walk in and expect it to work. That's the way it is. I mean, we do. It's like people expect their cars. Turn the key and put the key in the ignition, turn it, expect it to start. And I never hear from them until they put the key in the ignition. It goes click, click, click. Then they go, oh, now the time to call a mechanic. And I even get people on Facebook that write me and says, my car is doing this. They're 1,000 miles away. And I'm going, man, you need to find a shop. You need to be on a first name basis. Your doctor, your lawyer, your minister, your auto technician, and your plumber. I'm going to add that. If you don't have your plumber on a first name basis, you need to call Mr. Reuter and get a plumber on a first name basis. Get to know them. Have them come out. Check your place out. Consultations are free, if I'm not mistaken. Just come out and say, hey, what can you do for me? And if they say, we can't do a thing for you, it didn't cost you a thing. Or we can do something for you, and this is what it's going to cost. And that's upfront pricing before they start. Is that correct?
That is absolutely right.
All right. I want to thank you so much for calling, Scott. They can reach you at 763-2001, Monday through Sunday from 8 to Kent. All the time.
That's right. Absolutely.
And we'll talk. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah!